Soos genoem gesels ek vanoggend met Dr. Lukeshni Chetty en sy is van Sansor. Doctor, welcome to GROOTplaas.
Thank you, Mia. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's time to talk about soyabeans, and it's such a flourishing industry in South African agriculture. Am I right?
Indeed, absolutely. And I think we're seeing that in the last 4 or 5 years. Soybean yields have increased incredibly.
Now, if we look at the industry in the bigger picture, paint me a picture of how is it going? How is it going with South African, with our soya farmers?
So I think if you ask me about the bigger picture, we have to look at the last decade or so. And we went through a period of time where we were not seeing any new varieties. Yields were sitting pretty average. And the farmers in South Africa really, we've got great farmers. They wanted to be competitive. So about 5, 6 years ago, the industry came together and they said, well, what can we do? And they developed an organization called SACTA, called the South African Cultivar and Technology Agency, which looked at putting a levy to support breeding. And what this did is in the last 4 years, because of this levy, we started to see an influx of new varieties and new technologies. And that's why I said earlier, we saw an increase in yields in the last few years. In soybean.
Yeah. Isn't it just beautiful when people come together and say, you know, okay, this is what we have. Let's try and make it better. Let's try and make it bigger. Is that almost the way that you experience it in the industry?
Absolutely. I think, you know, often we only talk about the divisions in the industry, farmers, seed, processors. But in this particular case, for the betterment of the country, for the betterment of the industry, collaboration is the way to go.
Absolutely.
And it was the farmers and the seed industry that came together and said, look, for this to work, we need to find a solution. And together we worked on the solution, and we're seeing great results.
Let's focus a bit on some of the challenges. What are, and you can answer from your perspective, from the seed side, but what is the industry's biggest challenges at the moment? What do you hear on the ground?
Look, there are those national challenges, Mia, which we cannot hide away from. The load shedding, the roads,
yes.
Water scarcity. These challenge our farmers on a daily basis. It challenges the industry on a daily basis. But in addition to that, at a more industry level, farm safe seed continues to be a challenge, not because we don't acknowledge the farmer's right to save seed, but it does pose new challenges, which new seed comes with certain levels of quality standards, and anti-disease measures. But with farm safe seed, you don't have those measures, which means you can get other diseases on the ground, which begins to affect everything. So disease management will always be a challenge in this ever-changing climate.
Yes. Do you think the general public realizes how big the contribution is, how big the soya industry, how big its contribution is to the South African economy? I mean, it's huge, right?
I don't think the average person realizes this at all. I think somehow they think they get soy on their shelves and plant-based foods on their shelves, or the animals have something to eat somewhere or the other. You know, it's not just the economy, it's jobs, it's scientific knowledge. There's a whole value chain behind us.
Yeah, that's one of the things. And I think even if we talk about soybeans, it's not just a singular product you get on the shelves. There's a big variety that it's used for, and I think that sometimes. That even surprises me sometimes. You think, oh, soya beans, oh, this and this, maybe the mince, but it's not. It's used in so much product, right?
It's used in so many products in its various forms, in its protein form, in its oil form. across the various industries, and it's underrated as to how valuable it is. But we're now seeing that farmers are planting more soybean. We are seeing that we are planting in areas that we never used to plant in, but that's because we're getting these newer varieties from South America. And we've had good rains in the last few years, Mia, so we can't take all the credit that has helped us.
Yes.
We'll see now how the weather holds up in the years to come, because they say we're going to have some drought. And let's see what choices the farmers make in terms of what they produce. I think... sorry, go ahead.
No, I think when we talk about the ideal circumstances, the ideal environment when it comes to farming with soya, what does that ideal picture look like? Is there one picture, or is it different?
It's different because farmers in this country are diverse. They introduce other things onto their farms. Look, you need a lot of things to make it work.
Yes.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you need a good market.
Yeah.
And I think as an industry and a country, we have to think beyond our own immediate market. There is opportunities to export our products as well. So we'll never be left bored in this industry.
Doctor, I think when we talk about new varieties and technology and the way that it's opening up possibilities for, let's say, the soya industry and in other industries as well, obviously, but how exactly does it do that? I mean, what are these opening up of markets? What possibilities are being opened? And what new varieties are they? Is it an annual thing, or does it take quite a lot of research for a new variety to come out?
These are great questions, Mia, and just really up my alley.
I'm so glad.
I think let's just recognize, in order to get new varieties, we need skilled plant breeders.
Yes.
There's not that much breeding happening in South Africa, very little breeding. And the agricultural space, like it or not, while you might be living and having a farm in this country, it's a global space. On a daily basis, we are buying genetics from other countries. We are bringing it in. We are testing it. We are seeing if there's any benefit to farmers. So with soybean, similar to maize, there's two components. There's a germplasm component, which is what makes the variety, and there's a biotechnology component, which gets added onto this. And together, this package is what makes the difference for the farmers. They get great germplasm with those specific agronomic traits, and then biotechnology, which would deal with, in soybean's case, for the last 20 years, the biotech has been herbicide tolerance. And last year, we have a new biotech trait that was introduced called Intacta, which gives you insect resistance, which is the first time in this country that we did this, and we only were able to do this because of that collaboration for the levy. And this just means that the farmer's input costs would reduce. He'd use less pesticide. He gets a guaranteed yield at the end of the day.
You talk about obviously for this research to take place, we need skilled people. And how do you think South Africa is faring when it comes to producing those skilled professionals to drive innovation in the agricultural sector? Do you think we are doing all right?
I think we're doing better.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I think we're doing better. I think young people are enjoying this industry a little bit more. I think they'd like to be a part of this industry. I think it's becoming cooler. Certainly we're doing better. What it will always be challenging is the kind of investment that is required to support breeding programs. But we're a strong agricultural country, I'm proud to say, and proud to be a part of.
And I'm wondering if we look at the soya industry in South Africa, just when we talk about exports and if we talk about international markets, is there actively effort being put in to open up new markets for an industry like the soya industry?
I'm not sure, but I think right now we've gotten to a point where we don't have to import as much as we once did. So I think we'll have to just see how it goes and keep our eye on the horizon as to what opportunities
and
maybe.
You spoke about earlier, and that makes so much sense to me. When it comes to having a crop on the market, it's got a lot to do, or its success has got a lot to do with the market that needs it and that wants the crop. So do you think we've got a big enough market in South Africa to keep the industry, growing forward and moving forward?
I think we do for where we are right now. I think if we continue on this trajectory, we might have to look for outside markets. At the same time, while saying that, keep in mind that there's always these trends in what people do.
Yes,
you go through a trend of being vegan and wanting plant-based food, and then we go through a trend of wanting these sort of veggies. So you have to keep your eye on the markets all the time to see what's becoming popular. There was a time 20, 30 years ago where the only substitutes you got were soy-based. Now you are getting them from wheat and pea protein. So this is why it's so exciting to be in agriculture.
I just want to have a final thought from your side. Obviously, while talking to you, I can actually feel that there's a lot of things to be excited about. And just in a brief answer, if you can, what are you the most excited about at the moment when it comes to innovation?
I am excited that globally the innovation landscape has changed.
Yes.
We went from breeding in a certain way to 30 years ago, GMOs, to now we're sitting with plant breeding innovation, CRISPR-Cas, gene editing. The possibilities are endless.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry to cut you off, but it's been a pleasure talking to you, and thank you for your knowledge. Have a good day.
Thank you, Mia. Lovely to be here.
Dankie dat jy ingeskakel het. Ek en jy sien mekaar môreoggend weer. Ek hoop jy het 'n wonderlike dag. Totsiens.